School safety. We know what you are thinking, but it is more than you think, far more. Good morning and welcome to the Pennsylvania School Safety Hour. I'm Susan Snellig, president of Northern Pennsylvania Regional College, and I am thrilled to be joined here at PCN Studio by Michael McGrady, a 38-year public safety professional and principal of MCM Consulting Group Incorporated. Today and every other Sunday at 10 a.m., we will be joined by researchers, safety professionals, lawmakers, school administrators, parents, and others as we explore a host of contemporary issues impacting our schools and children's safety. Well, the first thing that often comes to mind when we say school safety might be metal detectors, active shooter training, or panic buttons in the classroom. The Pennsylvania School Safety Hour will focus on evidence-based research that helps frame and inform the decision-making process used to ensure our schools support and nurture all children's unique qualities and interests, critical to every child's development and, by extension, school safety. Now it's time to get things started here on the Pennsylvania School Safety Hour. Before we do, if you have any questions about any issue we discuss here on the program, send them to questions@safetyfirsttv.com. For nearly 4 decades, Scott Henry has been involved in public safety. As a Pennsylvania State Trooper, founder and director of one of Pennsylvania's Act 120 Police Academy programs, a Pennsylvania State Police Camp Cadet program counselor, the creator of the Comprehensive Plan, and more. Scott, welcome back to the Pennsylvania Public School Safety Hour.
Thank you for having me.
Scott, last week you gave us a brief overview of the Comprehensive Plan, but I believe there's 5 steps. Can we go over those 5 steps today?
It's 5 parts, as mentioned, Mike. It is a template that we created many years ago, and I alluded to last week in our segment. It is a template that was created based on a lot of training, a lot of trial and error. And subsequently, the biggest need for the template was what was being asked from the field, our schools, or our hospitals, our churches, etc. And it was a work that has evolved over probably 23, 24 years and still is evolving in ways. But it's 5 parts that integrate with each part, which makes it unique. Again, it's a foundation. If one location does not have a sufficient or efficient safety posture, security posture to their location, it can be utilized by those administrators or staff to thus create or enhance what they might have in place. But it's 5 parts, and those 5 parts are the all hazards plan portion. Just to, think of a pie, all hazards plan. The second is the emergency labeling system. It's a wayfinding system. It's a standardized system that we created in the northern tier of Pennsylvania that I'm extremely proud to have been a part of. And attached to that piece is the communications, which I know we spoke about briefly last week, Mike, that we both know how important and effective communications, the need for it from a critical incident standpoint. Then we have the risk vulnerability assessment piece of it's the infrastructure part. For example, now the Pennsylvania State Police has a unit that devotes a personnel to going out and assessing locations, schools, etc., and then providing recommendations to upgrade or enhance their infrastructure security posture. But they look at a multitude of things too within their assessment process. Then we have the education and training as it relates to the location staff and administration. It is a vast piece because training and education should never cease, especially in today's world. And then you have the first responder training and education piece. Your law enforcement, your EMS, your fire, etc. But to have an efficient plan the integration of the comprehensive plan is so important, because then you are addressing all of these pieces on a continuous basis. And again, the training and education piece, such a variety that I know you are talking, both are talking to I qualify as experts within their respective areas. And so it's all needed, it's all warranted, and it's been well received out in the field in our state.
So let's talk a little bit about the emergency labeling system and communications, because we know interoperability between police, fire, emergency medical services is extremely important, but also for them to be quickly and efficiently be able to enter a structure or a building and find, the proper, room.
It is so important. Time is of the essence when we talk critical incident.
Right.
And what we've created is a standardized approach to the wayfinding, that not only our schools in the northern tier, Tioga County is a prime example, but our courthouse, our hospitals, our churches, it is the same wayfinding system, alphabetically as far as your entrance exits and numerically as far as your interiors. If it's multiple floors, it just corkscrews up. It's so simplistic. And no more sides, no more A side, B side. When we first started down the public safety side, Mike, that was what we were, accustomed to. And we all were to talk that same language within the different disciplines. Here, this is more specific. And thus, whether it's a fire truck going on the south side of the building, and the whole communications piece, talking with law enforcement, I'm at entrance Z, for example. We know exactly where that's at. But it also integrates our county emergency management and county 911 dispatch centers. They have the appropriate materials, because you take the labeling, then you enhance it with your visual imagery, which is upgraded to your AutoCAD, your mapping, and then in turn that goes in the respective technology bases, whether it's county communications or the police cars or the fire trucks. So again, from an incident command standpoint, it makes things much, more simplistic, more understanding of where we're at versus, I'm on the northwest corner, there's a bad guy, for example, in the second floor window. Okay, well, where exactly? I know where north and west is, but time, again, is the essence. But we teach our locations that when they have a critical incident, whether it's a student having a medical condition or a bad guy with a weapon, when they call that 911 center, then it's going to be bad guy just came through entrance C, he's doing what he's doing in hallway 3. If we're the responding officers, Mike, we know where to go. And it all integrates with, for example, the risk vulnerability assessment. We know where the fob points are. We should already have the keys, et cetera. It's so simplistic. And thank goodness, I unfortunately had 2 active assailant incidents in my career as a state police officer. We have not, fortunately, since we implemented the ELS in the northern tier, had to use it in that sense, but we've used it for fire and EMS, and it works so smooth.
So this way, the 911 call taker, so when they're getting the initial information, they'll know exactly where to send the police, the fire, the EMS.
Yes, sir.
And that same information can actually be sent out to the field, so on their MDTs, so they can see exactly where they're going.
Yes, sir. And they can take it a step farther. If first officer on scene, in essence, of course, he's going to make initial response, but he could be the ultimate incident on-scene commander. Well, he's going to have the maps and the pictures and everything within his, if he has those capabilities in his patrol unit, he can see everything. He can literally conduct business out of that cruiser.
And I think that's important, because sometimes when you do have a large-scale incident, whether it's a fire or something else happens, you can have multiple units from multiple disciplines from multiple counties showing up at the scene.
That's such a valid point, your multi-agency response. And this is a system, Mike, that takes 5 minutes to learn. That's all. So if you're coming from Bradford County and I'm coming from Tioga County, if we are aware of the system, then we know how it operates. And that's how we're going to communicate, back to the communications piece. And it simplifies matters. It negates confusion. It negates waste of time.
And I think we know that time is of the essence, Susan.
So I'm curious, as the name indicates, it's a comprehensive plan. So it sounds like there's a lot of moving pieces and people who should be part of the development of the plan.
Very
so
much.
Can you talk about like the who, like who's involved in the development?
Certainly from an administration standpoint, let's use a school. Well, your superintendent, your administrators, your principals, your safety teams, et cetera, all have to be a part of this planning process, working in conjunction with county emergency management, their primary law enforcement, fire, EMS service. All of these people and folks have say in the development of whether it's the all hazards plan. They should be a part of the risk assessment. There are just a number of things that it takes a village,
Right.
and thus that input. And certainly when we think in the rural communities and where NPRC is so effective, Susie, that it takes everybody. You know, when we talk a critical incident, generally it's taking everybody from outside, you know, not only the county affected, but the other adjoining counties to have an effective response. Well, if we're all on the same page and the same sheet of music, well, then we can get the job done much more effectively and quickly.
Alrighty.
Yeah, Scott, thank you so much. It's really just been great having you here and learning more about the comprehensive plan. If you'd like to learn more about the plan, Northern Pennsylvania Regional College will be hosting several events focusing on the plan at schools and places of worship. So please look for more information on that.
We are happy to be back with Beth Sanborn from PASRO. Can you tell us a little bit about your organization and a little bit about yourself?
Yes. So PASRO, the Pennsylvania Association of School Resource Officers, is a nonprofit organization, and we're comprised of really any stakeholder who's interested in the safety and the well-being of our students in our schools. So they encompass school resource officers, school police officers, school safety officers, educators, administrators, and all staff who work in schools, as well as government agencies who have an interest in school safety.
All right, and a little bit about yourself.
So I currently serve as the president of PASRO, so I'm a little biased and I'm a little proud of our organization. I'm also an instructor with NASRO, the National Association of School Resource Officers, and I serve as a school safety coordinator in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. So not only does my work reflect my passion for school-based safety, but also in my volunteerism as well.
So for those who missed last week's episode, can you tell us a little bit about what an SRO is and what they do?
Yeah, absolutely. So they're sworn law enforcement who are hired by a government agency who work in collaboration with the school district. So most police officers got into it with a good mindset of wanting to help their communities. And when you work with kids, you have the opportunity to positively impact lives with every single interaction. So we get to serve as the law enforcement officers in the community. We get to serve as mentors and counselors, as well as public safety educators. So we get the luxury of time with our kids every day.
We talked previously about some of the educational opportunities that your association offers for police officers.
Absolutely. What we try to do is we try to keep abreast of all the best practices, whether it's through training and education or whether it's with products or whether it's with collaboration. So we partner with many organizations in the state, whether it's the Attorney General's Office for Safe to Say Something, or whether it's with NASRO, the National Association, or other school-based safety organizations to make sure that we're promoting the best educational opportunities out there. We may host one-hour lunch and learns, or we might bring a vendor or a speaker to our conference so that they can educate those around us and make sure that we're doing what's best for our kids in our school buildings.
Hey, thank you. Now, I know sometimes we get a little pushback for having an armed officer in the schools. You know, can we talk about that?
Sure. I would say the pushback comes about if there's an ignorance as to who school resource officers are and how we're trained. In order to have a successful program, you want to make sure that that officer is specifically chosen, first of all, because you have to have the right person in the right job, right? So if you're squeamish around teeth, maybe being a dentist isn't the right career opportunity for you. So once we make sure that we have someone who is really vested in the success of kids and wants to see them succeed, that's the first step. So once we have someone who's specifically chosen, we want to make sure that they're specially trained, because policing in a school environment is very different than policing out on the streets. And you have to understand adolescent brain development, you need to understand de-escalation, you need to understand that sometimes kids do dumb things. And it's okay for them to make mistakes. We try not to make that a roadblock that interferes with their success. And then once we have all of those things combined, when we have that person who's particularly chosen and educated, then we make sure that they're properly equipped. It's awfully difficult to do a job if you don't have the tools necessary to do your job. And if you're working with kids in a school environment, some of the tools that you might need are a safe space like an office, an email address, a cell phone number, an office extension, making sure that you're part of the community so that the broader environment knows and understands that you're not an outsider, that you're part of the school-based team.
Thank you. So we talked about soft skills. Can we have a little discussion further on that?
Sure. If we're engaging in our conversation now, I don't suppose you'd like it very much if the next time you asked me a question, if I pulled out my cell phone and I started fiddling or scrolling. It's about making eye contact and really showing that you're engaged in what's going on. It's making sure that the person that you're talking with knows how important their conversation is. It's about understanding body language and personal space and distance. Making sure that if you are going to express a touch that you're listening to someone or that you're being empathetic or sympathetic in the moment, that it's appropriate. So some of those soft skills are really important for relationship building, but oftentimes are forgotten about. And yet that's what's most important with communication, is building that relationship and that rapport to know that someone feels comfortable enough to talk to you and perhaps disclose something that they've never shared before.
And we talked about previously about parents and how they can be an ally for the school resource officer.
Absolutely. Parents are part of the team just as much as guidance counselors are, as much as administrators are, favorite teachers and coaches. We all get to see our kids in a different light, and sharing that information with each other is truly critical if we want to put together all of those pieces, all of those facets to a kid's personality to be able to get that crystal clear picture. Don't be afraid to communicate with your school resource officer. If there is a police officer in your school, introduce yourself. Say hi, ask what their mindset is, what their ideology is, and I can pretty much promise you your school resource officer is going to greet you with a handshake and a smile and tell you how great their kiddo is.
And you had talked about counselors, teachers, administration. That's all part of the school resource officer's team, correct?
Absolutely. We all work together, whether it's talking to a nurse about something that we notice that's unusual. One of the things that I asked of my school community is that I could only be in one place at one time, which means I'm only one set of eyes and ears. But if you get everybody on the team together, you're now creating lots and lots of sets and eyes and ears. We all know what's normal for our school community, just like you can recognize which cars you're going to see in the parking lot when you arrive in the morning and who's going to be the last one to walk in the door at the start of the day. We have to know what's normal for our school community so that we can recognize when something is out of the norm for our school community, and then feel empowered enough to say something when we recognize that something is out of the norm.
So a lot of what a school resource officer's job is prevention.
Absolutely. We want to be proactive to prevent a problem. We don't want to have to wait until there's an issue where we need to respond to an incident. If we can get this safety net strong and get everybody on the same page working together, prevention is a much easier fight to fight if we're all working together.
Well, Beth, thank you so much for being here today. We'll see you next time. Coming up is Lycoming County's District Attorney, Tom Marino, in full view.
Northern Pennsylvania Regional College offers a flexible, accessible, and affordable education across 10 counties and 24 locations. NPRC inspires and serves local residents and businesses through associate degrees and workforce training, making education affordable and attainable for students ready to invest in themselves. Learn more today about Northern Pennsylvania Regional College. Brighter futures begin here.
For 911 and emergency first responders, the difference between life and death is often a matter of time. 911, what's your emergency?
Please, hurry!
911 operators and emergency responders count time in seconds. For first responders, getting to the right address and precise location is greatly enhanced by ELS 911 Integrated Emergency Labeling System. ELS 911, as simple as ABC and 1, 2, 3. And for as little as $900 a year, your facility receives a professional wayfinding assessment, facility mapping update, 911 integration, and ELS 911 certification, demonstrating to stakeholders, insurers, and the public that you understand public safety is a matter of time. So don't wait.
We welcome back Tom Marino, four-term district attorney for Lycoming County. On last week's episode, we had a great discussion about the rehabilitation center that you are in the process of having created. Can we talk more about that today?
Sure, yes. It's instead of a juvenile detention center, we call it, or I call it, a juvenile rehabilitation center. And that's what the key word is, rehabilitation. If we're putting them into a jail type environment, then for the most part, when they come out, they're going to be like, okay, I was in jail, then I'm going to move to the next level of crimes. And that's how it seems to be working. But I want this facility to be out in the country. I want, when people ride by, they wonder what that big building is, or what big house is. But I want it to be staffed with psychologists, a psychiatrist, of course a medical team, individuals that are educated and professionals in dealing with juveniles. I want to set up a program where we have Penn College of Penn State right in our backyard. To have teachers come in on and teach programs that these kids will be interested in. Once we give them their high school diploma, once they study for that high school diploma. And I know if we start from that point forward, if a kid wants to be a chef, kid wants to be a technician of some type, wants to be a welder of some type, once we get these kids within this facility, we're going to be changing their lives. And they're going to come out and be good citizens of our county.
Absolutely. Well, I love the idea that it's about rehabilitation. So you're giving these young people hope for their future. And so it sounds like a great idea, but it sounds very expensive. So can you talk about the funding piece to it?
It is very expensive. It's probably going to be in the area between $40 and $60 million. But I've hired a grant writer for my office, and she does an incredible job. But I reach out to state legislators. I'm reaching out to my fellow colleagues in Congress that are still there. And I'm trying to get the word across, not only Pennsylvania, but across the state, is if we have a facility like this, and the state all 67 counties have a place to send their troubled kids, the message is going to get out there, and you're going to see other states coming in and looking at our facility and saying, what have you done here? And we made it the state of the art. We're looking at clearly rehabilitating the 12, 13, 14-year-old as opposed to punishment. Now, within the facility, there will be forms of punishment, just like if you don't do the job that you were assigned, then you don't get your extra activity time. These things, they work. I want the kids to be exposed to the outside, meaning that I want them to learn what taking care of the lawn there is, planting vegetables, dealing with some livestock of some sort, to get that inner city element out of their head and get this country perspective into their head.
You're teaching them life skills that
Absolutely.
will give them something else to do, give them a hobby maybe, or just things that they can use in the future, and hopefully they can take those skills and really turn their life around.
Yeah. And we're going to build this big enough where the juvenile detention officers are there. We're going to build a facility big enough where there can be counseling. And one of the things about putting these kids in counseling is I'm going to insist that, unfortunately, it may just be the mother or the father, sometimes it'll be both, but they take part in the counseling as well. And then we have to help the mother who is trying to raise these 3, 4, 5 kids on her own.
And Tom, this actually will make the school safer in the long run, correct?
Yes, because the 10-year-olds, the 11-year-olds look up to the 14-year-olds, the 14 and 15-year-olds they're sent here from Philadelphia by the adults because they know they're going to get arrested here in Lycoming County, and we're going to put them away as long as we can. So they send the kids in with guns, money, and drugs. And we have, on occasion, backtracked, and with the help of the state police, who are tremendously an asset to us, the marshals as well, and the authorities in Philadelphia, we're working together. We're going to be able to take down these drug dealers, for the most part, in an overall scale.
So the key is to keep the drugs out of the schools.
Oh, yes.
And the problems that it causes.
Yep. The drugs and the guns out of the schools. Because one of my degrees is in secondary education, and I did a little student teaching, so to speak. But these teachers are stressed out today. Classes are large, the kids are unruly. These schools need more money to hire, as I said earlier, I think, more police officers, to hire more teachers so the classes aren't as large as what they're dealing with now, and also to have a staff on board at the school for counseling as well. And just 1 or 2 counselors doesn't do it. We need people with degrees in psychology and know how to really deal with these kids.
So that way the teacher can recognize the issue, refer them to the counselor,
Yep.
and so hopefully someday they never have to meet you or your office.
Right. But we also need, in this school, we have to make sure that weapons aren't being brought into the school, drugs aren't being brought into the schools. And that's where the law enforcement comes in, because the teacher is there to teach.
Yeah, and this show has tied it all together, where we talk about, the school resource officers and how they are so important to what gets done for safety every day in school. Well, Tom, it's always great to have you here. We look forward to continuing this conversation in 2 weeks. So thank you for coming.
You're very welcome. It's my pleasure.
Thank you.
Northern Pennsylvania Regional College offers a flexible, accessible, and affordable education across 10 counties and 24 locations. NPRC inspires and serves local residents and businesses through associate degrees and workforce training, making education affordable and attainable for students ready to invest in themselves. Learn more today about Northern Pennsylvania Regional College. Brighter futures begin here.
For 911 and emergency first responders, the difference between life and death is often a matter of time. 911, what's your emergency?
Please, hurry!
911 operators and emergency responders count time in seconds. For first responders, getting to the right address and precise location is greatly enhanced by ELS 911 Integrated Emergency Labeling System. ELS 911, as simple as ABC and 1, 2, 3. And for as little as $900 a year, your facility receives a professional wayfinding assessment, facility mapping update, 911 integration, and ELS 911 certification, demonstrating to stakeholders, insurers, and the public that you understand public safety is a matter of time. So don't wait.
Welcome back. We are so happy to have with us Marissa Vasiri, President and founder of the Jana Marie Foundation. Marissa, welcome back. It's great to have you.
Thank you so much for having me again today.
Absolutely. So the last time that you were here, you talked about the wonderful work that your foundation is doing. And I know you're doing great work around suicide prevention. So today, if we could talk about how you're using art in a way that helps with the mental health of our young people, that would be great.
Yeah, wonderful. As I mentioned last time, Jana uses a lot of art and music and creative expression in our programs. And a lot of that was based off of Jana's ways of healing and where she felt really empowered. And what we have learned is that art and music and creative expression are all really powerful vehicles where we can look at a piece of artwork, for example, and it becomes this universal language. We may all feel a little bit different about the piece that we're looking at, but it can open up those conversations that are often really difficult to have. And so in all of our programs that we've created, we really emphasize that art piece. And it's not always about the finished product, but more so the production and the way that we can express ourselves openly and freely when we're creating. And then also with the finished piece, the way that we can start the conversations that come from it. One example of these programs is our Stompers project. So we have worked with a team of artists to create 6'4" sculptures of people from recycled sneakers. So we'll do big sneaker drives, and then we'll get all the sneakers together, wash them really well, and make sure they're nice and clean. And then we deconstruct them. So we break them into pieces and parts. We'll go into schools, we'll educate about suicide prevention, about mental health and wellness, about the resources that are available to our young people. And at the end of our curriculum, they will each get to decorate a piece of that deconstructed sneaker. And then it gets laced together to form one of our stompers. We have 21 of them to date, and they are such powerful pieces when you see them. It opens that door for a conversation that many aren't comfortable in having. And so somebody might see one out, they'll walk over to it and ask, can you tell me a little bit about this? And we can share about some of those different warning signs for mental health challenges or for suicide. We can talk about the available resources, and we can talk about how we as a community can really come together to create those safety nets for our young people.
Yeah, I love the idea of creating art, and to be able to reuse sneakers. That's just such a unique way to create art. I think that's just awesome. So could you, I know for a lot of the viewers listening, they'd be interested in knowing, like, what are some of the signs and symptoms that teachers and parents and those out there watching could be looking for as in regard to suicide prevention?
Yeah, we're really looking for some changes in somebody's thoughts, feelings, actions, or appearances. And so those could be any type of change that we're seeing. We're going to want to start a conversation to understand a little bit more about it, but especially if we're seeing significant changes. So if somebody is now having really heavy racing thoughts, they're having a really pessimistic view, a lot of self-blame, a lot of self-criticism, or maybe it's somebody that was coming to school, dressed really nicely, making sure their hair was combed, showering, taking care of their hygiene, and now we're seeing a shift in that, and how those changes are occurring. Same with some of our behaviors. Maybe they're withdrawing from their friends, their families, their activities, or even being really hopeless or seeming sad or worried. So anything like that, we need to have a conversation with them and just start by asking, are you okay? Letting them know what you've noticed. So I've noticed these changes, and letting them know that you care. And then if that spidey sense is going off in us at all, if we're wondering about, are they safe? Are they having those thoughts of suicide? We need to ask directly, are you thinking about suicide? And then reminding them that there's help and there's resources out there.
Absolutely. So I'm curious what your thoughts are when we look at a school setting and the fact that a school might be serving hundreds or even thousands of children every single day. Mm-hmm. What can we do to get more eyes on the child and the student so that everyone in the school has the training that they need in order to be better prepared to help that student?
Yeah, I think it takes an entire community. So we need to start with our educators, making sure that they do have some of that basic training. So evidence-based programs like QPR or Question, Persuade, Refer, Suicide Prevention, or mental health first aid can really help give us some basic information. We also really need to make sure that we're having that education come down into our students, just about mental health in general. So ways that we take care of ourselves, just like we take care of our physical health, and we spend so much time focused on that. And we also need to create places where our kids can belong, whether that's through clubs or lunch bunch programs, sports and band, whatever it might be. We need those places where kids can find like-minded individuals and have a place where they can just be their true self and feel comfortable in that space. And the more that we can create those environments, the more that we can really be there with those safety nets and having those eyes on the kids, making sure that they're involved.
Absolutely. And so can you talk a little bit about the work your foundation does with parents of children? Are there programs that you offer where parents get involved and get engaged with their children?
Yeah, absolutely. One of our programs that we offer is called Side by Side, and it's a mother-daughter retreat day. And we work with community partners to host the day. And they come together. They may do some baking side by side. They might do pieces of artwork that when put together, it creates one picture, but they can also be standalone pieces. Yoga, partner yoga, so all different ways that they can really build on that connection and focus on play. I think as our kids get older, it's hard to find those moments that we can really connect with them. And that day is just an example of some of the different activities that we can build into our schedules to really be there and support our kids. I also think that it's really important that parents have spaces too where they can connect and come together so they can better show up for their kids. So we do a lot with Compassion Resilience as well, which talks about how do we set those healthy boundaries for ourselves? How do we still make time for ourselves as parents when we're trying to be there for our kid and advocate and be on all of the time for them? And so we found that to have a lot of success as well in our community. It just really creates that safe space for parents to come together and talk and share and also brainstorm ways to make those more meaningful moments happen with their children.
Oh, I love that idea that not only is the child supported, but the parent is supported as well.
Yeah.
That's great. So you've shared so much good information today, the work of the foundation. If viewers want to find out more information specifically about the Jana Marie Foundation, please tell me, where can they go?
Yeah, please visit janmariefoundation.org, or you can follow us on Facebook or Twitter. And the other number I just want to mention, which is not associated with Jana Marie Foundation, but a really important one when we're talking about suicide prevention and mental health and well-being, is the number of 988. And that is our crisis and suicide line. It's national, and you can call or text 988 at any point. And somebody who is trained on the other end of the phone will be able to answer and have those important conversations with the caller and be able to share resources that are available for the individual.
Oh, thank you so much. Remember, viewers, 988. Thank you for sharing that. And Marissa, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate, and we look forward to having you back here in a couple more weeks.
Thank you so much. I look forward to coming back again.
The Prevention Center here was really part of a transformative moment in the conceptualization of what prevention even is in the country. And it was a modernization of the idea of prevention from, the early days. People often talk about the Ben Franklin quote of, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And that spirit still lives on, but the idea is that there's actually scientific inquiry that can go into understanding whether or not we successfully prevented something. When you do a drug treatment trial, right, and you give a drug to two different groups in a clinical trial, whether or not you made the person who was sick better. But when we're talking about prevention, especially the type of prevention that we specialize in, we're talking about preventing something from ever happening. And so proving that you kept something from happening is actually a different endeavor. And so for us, the prevention that we do, the kind of common idea of what prevention science is today, is really about this idea that there are underlying risk and protective factors that lead to many of the outcomes we as society want to prevent. Substance use, violence, child maltreatment, educational problems, right? And there are these fundamental sociologic as well as behavioral risk and protective factors, and biologic, that if we attend to, we can actually prevent many of these phenomena, these problems, these societal issues from happening in the first place. So that's really how we often characterize prevention science here at the center, is that that if we understand the risks, we understand what keeps things from happening, the protective factors, we can actually understand how to prevent something from ever happening at all. The burden of protecting children, keeping kids safe at school, really falls to everyone, but no more so than the teachers and the administrators in schools, and we can't forget about that. We also have to realize the incredible pressures, right, that these schools have, and the people in those schools have. In addition to keeping kids safe, they also have a mission to educate them. And for us, we've been very fortunate to have some long-term partnerships with schools and school districts around the country who have been part of studies, been part of service delivery, been part of the coalitions of preventionists that we've sought to build around the U.S. And so this is not an easy sort of task, right? People think that there are sort of magic solutions to keeping kids safe at school, but there's lots of ways that kids can be unsafe, right? And the process of actually securing a space, not only from a physical standpoint, but a psychological and emotional, so that kids can be successful in why they're there, to learn, to become educated, is complex, and it requires a systematic effort that brings together different stakeholder groups, not only the teachers and the principals, but members of the community, law enforcement, and faith leaders, nonprofits. They all have a role to play in how we as a community keep kids safe.
Well, Michael, another hour has passed and episode 2 of the Pennsylvania School Safety Hour has come to a close. Remember, you can watch this broadcast on demand through PCN Select.
Now here's this week's homework question.
The State of Pennsylvania's Legislative Budget and Finance Committee is finalizing its review of school safety funding provided by Act 44 of 2018, which includes See Something, Say Something, and the Pennsylvania School Safety and Security Grant Program. Tell us something the LBFC could learn from your school's perspective about the Act 44 program. What worked? What didn't? How can our state improve policies and funding directed at school safety? Hand in your homework to homework@safetyfirsttv.com by midnight, September 14th. If we read your answer at the end of the next program, we will be sending you a Pennsylvania School Safety Hour coffee mug.
Remember, coffee tastes better in it. For myself and Susan, thanks so much for watching. Join us again in 2 weeks right here for the Pennsylvania School Safety Hour on PCN.